In the eastern Indian state of Odisha stands an active 12th century structure that routinely defies modern physics in plain sight. Atop the 215-foot main spire, a sacred flag is hoisted daily. Observers report it flies in the exact opposite direction of the prevailing wind. A short distance away on the Puri coast, the ocean produces a constant, deafening roar. Yet, the moment you cross the threshold of the temple's main entrance, the Lion Gate, that acoustic baseline drops to total silence. And despite the massive, towering scale of the main stone structure, it is widely documented that at solar noon, the temple casts no shadow. This site is the Jagannath Temple. It is one of the Char Dham, the 4 sacred pilgrimage destinations in Hinduism, drawing millions of devotees each year who seek moksha, or spiritual liberation, in a place defined by physical anomalies.
To understand Puri, we must look through 4 distinct lenses: the tribal legend, the archaeological stone, the living faith, and the scientific anomaly. The first lens requires looking into ancient Puranic texts. They describe a king from the Satya Yuga named Indrayubna, who led an obsessive search for a hidden, divine manifestation known as Nila Madhava, the Blue Lord. Indrayubna's emissaries eventually located the deity, but it was not in a grand Vedic temple. It was being worshipped in secret by a tribal Savara king named Vishwavasu, deep in a forest, establishing a deeply indigenous pre-Vedic route for the site. The texts state that a massive, fragrant log, the Daru Brahma, later washed ashore. To carve it, the celestial architect Vishwakarma arrived, demanding total isolation and absolute secrecy while he worked on the idols. Driven by impatience, King Indrayubna opened the doors to the workshop prematurely. The architect instantly vanished, leaving the wooden idols forever unfinished. That interruption resulted in the iconic physical forms of Jagannath, Balabhadra, and Subhadra. They have massive, staring eyes, abstract faces, and lack distinct limbs. This origin myth performs a specific cultural function. By linking a tribal forest deity to the celestial architects of the Puranas, it perfectly marries ancient indigenous animism with mainstream Hindu theology into a single unified tradition. If we strip away the mythology, we hit the second lens, the hard archaeological evidence of the massive 12th century Kalinga-style stone structure. Historical records confirm the current temple was initiated by King Anantavarman Chodaganga Deva, a ruler of the Eastern Ganga dynasty with immense architectural ambitions. This map illustrates the borders of that dynasty. Copper-plate inscriptions, like the late 12th century Daskoba plates, prove a smaller shrine existed here before the empire expanded. The king utilized the site as a geopolitical tool, declaring the deity the true sovereign ruler of the state, while he served merely as its deputy. This established the temple as the literal geographic and administrative center point, locking the newly unified empire together. That deep integration protected the site. Over centuries, the temple faced intense threats and iconoclastic invasions, including the destructive campaigns of Kalapahara, yet the institution always recovered and rebuilt. Beneath the spiritual devotion, the foundational stones of the Jagannath Temple were laid as a deliberate, calculated mechanism for medieval statecraft and empire building. But leaving the historical archives brings us to the third lens, the active, kinetic energy of the living tradition present today. The temple operates on the philosophy of bhakti, a path of intense devotion and surrender. It is strictly non-sectarian, honoring the literal translation of Jagannath, the Lord of the universe. The physical manifestation of this inclusivity is the annual Rath Yatra festival, where deities leave the sanctum to bless the public directly. The logistical scale of this procession is immense. Early British accounts of these massive, unstoppable wooden chariots rolling through oceans of devotees introduced the word juggernaut into the English language. Despite their size and complex engineering, these towering structures are never reused. The chariots are constructed entirely from scratch every single year. Unlike ancient ruins that decay over centuries, Puri defies time because it is constantly disassembled and regenerated by the relentless living energy of its followers. The tribal mythos, the political archaeology, and the living faith have provided 3 distinct perspectives on the site. This brings us back to the unresolved anomalies. This vector model demonstrates how science rationalizes the flag's behavior using wind currents and pressure drops. However, data fails to prove why the fabric consistently defies the coastal winds. A second model charts acoustic waves from the ocean. Researchers apply theories of electromagnetic fields and architectural dampening to explain the total drop in decibels at the Lion Gate, but again, there is no consensus. Despite our modern analytical tools, the physical phenomena recorded at the site remain unproven. A massive gap still exists between the physics we can measure and the faith we can observe. That gap is most evident in the temple's deepest, most fiercely guarded secret, the Nabakali Bara. This ritual occurs every 12 to 19 years, when the wooden idols naturally begin to decay and must be replaced. During this transition, a highly secretive transfer takes place. Blindfolded priests, their hands wrapped in cloth, move the Brahma Padartha, an unseen, ancient core, from the old idols into the newly carved ones, operating in absolute pitch blackness. While history can map the stones and science can measure the wind, the true pulsing core of Jagannath remains fiercely protected, beyond the reach of our modern analytical lenses.